The movie opens as Elisa's life unravels all at once. Her mother just passed away after a long illness, and before she's even had a chance to breathe, her phone rings and her toxic boss fires her on spot. She's standing in the middle of nowhere when it happens. No job, no plan, and a grief she hasn't even started to process. Her best friend, Hannah, refuses to let her spiral. Hannah drags her down to Louisiana for a last-minute trip, insisting this is exactly the kind of reset Elisa needs, and that sometimes the best thing you can do with a broken life is put it somewhere beautiful for a while. The next morning, both of them nursing serious hangovers. Hannah signs them up for an alligator safari deep in the bayou. The tour agency is run by a grizzled old hunter named Walker, and the moment the group walks into a showroom, it's clear this man has seen things most people only read about. His walls are covered in trophies, animal skulls, mounted skins, and faded photographs from hunts in countries most Americans never visit. But the one thing that stops everyone cold is a massive hippo skull, mounted front and center like a warning no one ordered. Walker tells the group that Hippo was taken during his years in Africa, and he's not done talking. He leans in and tells them, with complete seriousness, that hippos are not the gentle river cows people assume they are. These animals are fiercely territorial, equipped with teeth that can bite clean through a small boat, and protective enough of their young to take down lions and full-grown alligators without breaking sweat. Nobody believes him. A few people smile politely. One person in the back looks at their phone. Nobody takes the warning seriously, and Walker can see it written on every face in the room. Their guide for the tour is Fred, a military veteran who knows these swamps better than most. Rounding out the group are Tim, a retired firefighter, his daughter Lily, who works as a nurse, and Tim's young grandson Mike, along with Brenda, a businesswoman whose impatience is already showing before they've even boarded the boat. Fred runs through the safety rules quickly. Hands and feet inside the boat at all times, no exceptions. He promises them the real prize of the tour is out there waiting, a massive 12-foot alligator locals call the Gator King, the undisputed ruler of this stretch of water. The boat glides into the swamp, and early on, the scenery is beautiful in that wild, overgrown Louisiana way. But the deeper they go, the quieter it gets. Fred pulls out a tracker linked to the Gator King's tag and tosses marshmallows into the water to draw the animal out. Nothing. He switches to raw chicken, the surefire trick that never fails. Still nothing. The water just sits there, flat and silent, as something has already cleared the area and left no reason to come back. When the suspense gets to young Mike, he reaches out and grabs the raw chicken himself, sending the group into a collective panic. It's a prank, and everyone exhales with a mix of relief and annoyance, but nobody laughs for long. As the boat moves to a new spot, someone spots something near the shore. It's the Gator King, floating dead in the shallows, torn apart so completely the water around it is still stained red. The body is shredded. Something out here ate an apex predator for breakfast. Fred doesn't say a word. He just turns the boat around and hits the throttle. Whatever killed the Gator King is still out here with them, and Fred has no interest in meeting it. But the boat barely gets moving before something underwater grabs it from below. The hull rocks violently, and before anyone can grab hold, the whole vessel tips and everyone goes into the water. They manage to scramble onto the capsized hull, but the water beneath them isn't still. Fred is treading near the edge when the surface around him suddenly turns red. The group pulls him out screaming, his shoulder torn open like something enormous bit down, and try to drag him under. Fred is barely conscious, shaking, struggling to stay with them. He says the grip was like a steel trap closing, and if he hadn't fought back with everything he had, he would have gone straight to the bottom and never come up. Lily kneels down to assess the wound and goes pale. Whatever made that injury had teeth at least 10 inches long. She tells the group that Fred is bleeding out fast, and out here in the swamp with no signal and no supplies, the only way to stop it is cauterization. Tim spots a safety kit floating nearby. Elisa doesn't hesitate. She crawls along the tree branches above the water, reaches down, and pulls the kit up just before it sinks out of reach. Tim heats the blade of a knife with a flare, and the group holds Fred down while it's pressed into the wound. Fred nearly blacks out from the pain, but the bleeding stops. They huddle on what's left of the boat and try to think clearly. No cell signal, no radio. Their only lifeline is the boat's tracker, which should be broadcasting their position back to Walker at the agency. He'll notice they're overdue by 7 in the evening, but that's 5 hours away. 5 hours in alligator-infested water with something out there that just killed the Gator King. Mike tries to stay busy, fishing through the murky water for supplies. He and his grandfather, Tim, manage to haul up a crate of bottled water, which helps everyone's nerves just slightly. The group starts talking, trading names, trying to act like things are under control. Then Mike spots a ripple cutting through the water toward them, fast and deliberate, and Tim shouts for everyone to climb higher. In a scramble, Lily loses her footing and hits the river hard. Elisa sees it happen and jumps in after her without thinking, dragging Lily toward the hull while the water churns around them. They barely make it back before a massive wave rolls through the area, slamming into the trees with enough force to shake everything. The impact sends Hannah flying into the water. Tim doesn't hesitate. He grabs a sharpened stake, steps into the river, and tells Hannah to count to 3 and swim toward him. She gets to 2. Tim is yanked under with so much force that the water swirls. He doesn't come back up. Hannah is still out there screaming when Elisa climbs a branch and reaches for her, but before she can get a grip, Hannah is gone too. The group freezes. In a matter of minutes, 2 people are dead, and for the first time, they see what's been hunting them. It isn't another alligator. It isn't anything anyone expected. Rising out of the black water is the head of an enormous hippo, its jaws spread wide, eyes fixed on the survivors like they're the ones in the wrong place. A hippo, in the middle of a Louisiana swamp. The group barely holds it together through the rest of the night, huddled on the wrecked hull in the dark, too terrified to sleep and too exhausted to think straight. Meanwhile, back at the agency, Walker realizes his group hasn't returned and sets out on a fixed route to look for them. But he can't get a ping from the tracker, so he's navigating blind in the dark. Out on the water, the survivors have figured out the same thing. The tracker must have shorted out when the boat capsized. Someone has to dive into the sunken hull to fix it, and no one wants to be the one to go under. Mike brings up something Walker mentioned earlier in Charm. One of the hippo's few weaknesses is fire. He suggests pouring their backup fuel across the water surface to create a firewall between them and the beast, buying them time to get the tracker working again. It makes sense, but somebody still has to go under to reach it. Elisa takes the keys to the storage locker, mutters something under her breath, and dives into the dark water before anyone can argue with her. Inside the flooded cabin, there's a small pocket of air near the ceiling. She shines her flashlight around, trying to get her bearings, and immediately wishes she hadn't. Hannah's body is down there, trapped in the wreckage, eyes open, hair floating. Elisa forces herself to look away and keep moving. She finds a tracker in the locker, grabs it, and is about to surface when Mike pops down to warn her that the firewall is almost burned out. The two of them kick for the surface together. Fred pops the tracker's battery, lets it dry for a moment, and restarts it. The signal comes back online. Not far away, Walker's boat picks up the coordinates and changes course immediately. When the survivors hear the motor cutting through the swamp toward them, they shout until their voices give out. Walker pulls alongside them, and they get Fred onto the boat. The relief barely has time to settle before Brenda turns on Fred, screaming about lawsuits and emotional distress, getting directly in his face while he's barely holding on. Mike steps between them, trying to calm things down, and Brenda shoves him hard. He goes over the side. Mike turns around in the water, and he's looking straight into the hippo's face. The jaw's close. Lily collapses on the deck, completely broken. In a single day, she has lost her father and now her son, and the grief has taken something fundamental out of her. Nobody notices when she picks up Mike's jacket and walks calmly into the river. Her eyes are empty. Walker raises his tranquilizer gun and tracks the hippo, but the beast ignores Lily entirely and circles around behind Walker instead. The impact knocks the gun clean out of his hands and sends it skidding across the deck. Fred, lying on the deck barely conscious, uses everything he has left to drag himself to the gun and pull the trigger. The dart connects. The hippo sinks. Walker swims to the nearest shore, calls back for Fred to follow, and turns to find Fred's eyes already gone. Fred is dead. Walker gets back to the boat. The hippo surfaces again, barely slowed down. He backs into a cluster of trees while it charges toward him and fires a distress flare directly into the animal's face. The heat drives it back into the depths, and Walker makes it onto the deck. The tour group that boarded that morning with cameras and sunglasses and not a care in the world is now down to 2 people. Elisa and Brenda. On the way back through the swamp, Elisa spots her lost backpack floating near the surface and pulls it out. Inside, tucked between some snacks and a change of clothes, is a camera with night vision. She starts scanning the dark shoreline through the lens and finds something she wasn't expecting, a cluster of white flowers drifting in wide patches along the water's edge. Walker recognizes them instantly. Water hyacinths, imported from Japan. He says they're the hippo's absolute favorite food, and then he goes very quiet, the way people do when they're putting something together that they don't want to be true. He tells them something that reframes everything they've been through. Over 100 years ago, the government approved an experimental program to import hippos from Africa as a livestock solution during a severe regional meat shortage. The idea was to farm them like cattle. The project was abandoned almost immediately when it became obvious how wrong the thinking was, but not everything that was brought over went back. Some of the animals stayed, bred, and built a life in the swamp. And in the dark ahead, the boat drifts past a cluster of collapsed buildings half swallowed by the Louisiana water and the years. Walker anchors near the ruins and says they will rest there until morning. Moving through the swamp in total darkness is suicide, and none of them has anything left to fight with anyway. The three of them step quietly ashore and move inside what turns out to be the original hippo breeding facility, abandoned a century ago and left to rot. The floors are covered in old bones. The air smells like something that has been sealed too long. In the backyard, under a collapsed iron cage, a baby hippo lies trapped and frightened, too exhausted to make much noise. Before any of them can process what they're looking at, a massive shadow fills the doorway behind them. The mother has tracked them all the way here. Walker shouts for the girls to run, and the three of them bolt into the main warehouse. Walker has no tranquilizers left. His only option now is to burn the facility down, destroy the nest, and use the smoke column to flag a rescue helicopter. Elisa finds an old fuel barrel in the corner, and they splash it across the floor and walls without hesitating. They run for the exit and find the hippo blocking the door. Walker takes the hit, knocked hard to the ground with a sound like something breaking. Elisa and Brenda fall back into the building. Brenda spots a staircase leading to a basement and runs for her heart. In her panic, she misses a step and crashes down, her leg snapping on impact. Elisa takes a different approach entirely. She starts making deliberate noise across the room, baiting the hippo into position, drawing it to a specific spot in the center, and drops a flame. The warehouse goes up in seconds. Elisa finds Brenda in the basement, pulls her upright, and the two of them limp toward the exit together. They pass the baby hippo on the way out, still trapped under the iron cage, eyes wide and panicked. Elisa stops walking. Brenda absolutely loses what's left of her composure, screaming at her to keep moving and leave the animal. And when Elisa still doesn't listen, Brenda abandons her completely and shoves out through the iron gates alone. There's a second adult hippo waiting on the other side. Brenda's luck finally runs out. Inside, Elisa crouches next to the baby hippo and studies the chain holding it down. She thinks about the way the mother has been attacking since the beginning, relentless, territorial, targeting every person who got between her and this place. She thinks about Walker's warning on the very first morning, the one everyone laughed off, and she understands now what they all missed. This whole time, the hippo wasn't hunting them for sport. He was trying to get its calf back. Elisa unlatches the chain and steps away. The baby scrambles up and bolts through the gap in the wall, and the mother follows without a single glance back at the person who let it go. Elisa walks out of the burning building alone, into the yard, into the night air that smells like smoke and swamp water, and the end of the worst day of her life. The fire behind her has turned the sky above the swamp into a beacon visible for miles, a column of orange and black rising above the tree line. And then, somewhere above the smoke, she hears rotors. Hungry 2026 movie recap ends with a helicopter searchlight cutting down through the dark, and finally, they find her standing in a clearing. After everything the swamp took from her today, and everything she had already lost before she ever boarded that boat, Elisa is finally safe.